and free itself from European influence as part of the general Asian Renaissance, along lines and at a pace that would have seemed chauvinistic to most Westerners. The Jews had provided funds to the Young Turks and had thus been able to control them. But in order for this control to last, the Jews must be seen to at least approve of and assist the Young Turks towards the attainment of national ideals. For both of these purposes, secrecy and subtlety of method are necessary. Oriental Jews are particularly suited to the exercise of magical powers. The political type of Freemasonry as it exists on the European continent has been chosen as the most effective bond and cover to conceal the workings of the movement. It has been stated above that at first the new form of Freemasonry in Turkey was to be fraternal with the members of the English Assembly, which meant the Scottish Assembly that had been established in Constantinople 50 years earlier. But the English Assembly soon realized that the ways of the local assemblies, which were generally run by Jews, were a ludicrous imitation and insulting form of the real Freemasonry. In the end, the Scottish Supreme Grand Council declared the local assemblies shams. As a result, the British Assembly closed its doors to the new Freemasons, including ministers of great power, such as Talat Bey and Javid Bey. Javid Bey, who controlled the Turkish armed forces, its finances, the emergency authorities, the parliament, in short, the fate of the whole country, naturally felt deeply humiliated by the British action, as rumors quickly spread in the chambers of the once rumor-ridden office. The result, of course, was that pro-British fervor became even more dampened. People were rumored to be furious at the British humiliation. But so far, there is no reason to suppose that it will make them change their cabinet policy, which is in principle quite friendly towards us. It might also be useful to give them a chance to think. We suppose that they have no, or very little, positive knowledge of the extreme views and policies of some members of the local council, who are connected with the Egyptian Freemasons and sympathize with them, and who are also working underground in Cairo, Iskandaria, and elsewhere. For there are those among the Freemasons here who are ultra-chauvinistic, who cooperate with the anti-Khedive and anti-British parties in Egypt. Recently, a member of the Arab Parliament and a member of Freemasonry said that he had good reason to think that one of the undeclared aims which they were trying to realize was to cause chaos in Egypt by means of propaganda and the occasional display of the Ottoman fleet in Iskandaria. This chaos would lead to riots and convulsions, thus creating the possibility of freeing oneself from the Khedive by means of the Black Hand, and thereafter appointing a member of Prince Halim's family as guardian of the Khedive's infant son, following the pattern of recent changes in the royal family in Iran. It is certain that the Association for Unity and Progress has encouraged the Iranian people and cooperated with them in bringing about the changes that have taken place in the royal family. Establishment of the Grand Assembly of Iran. There is now talk of starting a General Assembly of Freemasonry in Iran. Recently, Farjullah Khan, the charge d'affaires of the Iranian embassy in Constantinople, has become a member of Freemasonry. The members of the Association of Unity and Progress who subscribe to such ideas are Asiatic nationalists. No matter how grateful he is to any European country that gives him any assistance, he will consider it his national duty to help the sons of other Eastern nations who are really struggling to become free, and are waging a struggle in Egypt and in India to free themselves from European slavery. The policy of the Association of Union and Progress has never been directed by sentimental considerations. Any country that helps a Turkish country and gives it aid, and then hopes that it will feel indebted to it, has committed a grave mistake. It is said that Ismail Haqqi Bey Babanzadeh, who was a member of parliament representing Baghdad, and an expert on foreign affairs in the Association of Union and Progress, had a brother named Hikmat Bey, and worked under Rauf Pasha at the Ottoman representation in Cairo. It seems that this Hikmat Bey had suspicious relations, through some Syrians, with Muhammad Farid and others of the nationalists, although the leader was known for his honest behavior. The Young Turk newspaper, which was financed by the Jews, who also financed many other newspapers in the capital of the Ottoman Empire, every once in a while published papers that were very strong against the British on Egyptian matters. Among these were papers written by a young man from the island of Crete, whose name was Jalal Nuri. He was also a member of the Society of Union and Progress, and the son of a member of the upper house representing the Society of Union and Progress, whose name was Nuri Bey. Another writer among those featured in the newspaper was a Polish apostate named Saifuddin T. Gastot, who had previously had financial relations with a German Jew named Oppenheim. This Jew was well known in Cairo since the Aqaba incident. Saifuddin Gastot, in collaboration with an Egyptian named Hussein Hasib, had founded a newspaper which sought to spread the call for pan-Islamism. The newspaper was called Mimbar Rakayat and was published in two languages, Turkish and French. The obvious aim of the newspaper was to rouse the solidarity of millions of Muslims with the oppression suffered by their Muslim brothers and sisters in India, Egypt, Russia, Tunis, Algeria, and elsewhere, and to awaken them to cooperate with the Muslims in New Turkey. The newspaper stated that the politics of Europe were anti-Muslim and anti-Asian. The Turks were obliged to distrust Europe's lying and hypocritical gestures of friendship. Regarding Britain, the newspaper quoted a remark made by Ahmad Rida Bey as follows: "The destruction of the Ottoman Empire will increase the power of England and strengthen its position in Egypt and in the Arab countries." Hussein Hasib was more like a representative of the Egyptian nationalists in Constantinople. He devoted his attention to getting some Egyptian nationalist youths into Turkish schools. He also had a brother who worked with Muhammad Farid. Young Turk tendencies. What was the future trend of Young Turkey? From the civilian side, the representatives were Talat Bey, who had been a clerk in the telegraph office, with a salary of 3 Turkish liras a month. Javid Bey, the Minister of Finance, was a teacher who earned about 10 Turkish liras a month. Hussein Jabid Bey, who became a member of parliament, an editor-chief editor of the Taynan newspaper, used to translate novel stories into Turkish. With an honorarium of 10 cents a page for Abdul Hamid, their natural instinct, both then and now, is to degrade and dehumanize others to their level. In an empire of some 30 million people, 6 million of them are Turks. Under a truly constitutional government, where everything is done in a fair manner and equal opportunities are given to every other element, the Turks would have no chance to come to power because of their small numbers compared to the majority, which consists of Arabs, Greeks, Bulgarians, and also because they are inferior in terms of intelligence, education, and economic and entrepreneurial awareness. To maintain their position as the dominant race could only be done by a fighting presence, meaning through the army alone. The Turks were able to control the capital and parliament only through emergency laws. The Armenians have been terrorized by mass murder to the point of silence. The political life of the Bulgarians has been suppressed by violently closing down their associations and organizations. This was also done to the Christians, whom the Turks feared greatly, in case they rebelled. The Turkish army is also trying to subdue the Albanian Muslims, who have never known submission to anyone. The Kurds and the Arabs are probably waiting for their turn to be treated in the same way, since the Turks could not stand out in the field of thought and commerce. Their instincts naturally led them to display their supremacy in the field of military activities. If the Turkish element had succeeded in bringing the empire to a calm and frozen state at home, then in the field of foreign affairs, it would probably have resorted to the most ardent political chauvinism in the face of Iran, Egypt, Greece, and possibly Bulgaria. But at the present time, the Turkish element is not taking such measures because of considerations of caution and common sense. And there is also a connection with the Crete question, which can only be settled in a satisfactory form with the goodwill of the European countries. If Turkey succeeds in achieving a favorable settlement of the Crete question, it will certainly stir her passions to obtain similar successes in Egypt and elsewhere. But all this depends on the Europeans providing the money, most of whom are Jews, who always provide the necessary amount of money in a form where the number of soldiers does not match the present economic development. Turkey's current constitutional system is a blanket lie. But if we look to the future and consider how the Turkish element can maintain its dominance on the basis of force alone, then this is an insoluble problem. However, young Turkey itself has found itself a pioneer in a rising Asia, and considers itself obliged to safeguard the nascent independence of Iran, which is now being threatened by the arrogant and self-serving policies of Russia and Britain. It is this kind of thinking that has led to the avarice of West Azerbaijan, its secret contacts with the young Iranians, and Germany's attempts to intervene in Iran. The same was true of what happened in Morocco in 1906, and also with the revolutionary rebels in Caucasia. Similarly, the relationship that the Turks had with the Jewish and Armenian Tassanak revolutionaries in Russia, whom they hoped to weaken to the point of no longer being a danger, was done by fomenting unrest and chaos, and strengthening the currents of rebellion and revolution in the Nagari. With the help they received from the Jews, the Turks tried to win over their Hungarian brethren who were of Turanian origin. Also, they tried to organize a stream sympathetic to them in Afghanistan, and similarly among the Muslims in India. The new Turks have taken from the French Revolution Sufism, and separate the rich because of Jewish Freemasonry and French culture. The Turks of the Society of Union and Progress have copied the French Revolution, its atheistic ways, and also the ways in which it has impoverished the rich to the level of the poor. In a way, all of this is thanks to the instruction given by the Jews of the Freemasonry, and also because French is the only European language that is most widely spoken in the Near East.